Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Here we are, mid-July. Who knew? So really appreciate you being on. I'm Christine Simmon. I am the Senior Vice President for Policy and Strategic Alliances here at AAM. The Association for Accessible Medicines, as hopefully many of you know, represents the manufacturers of generic and biosimilar medicines. So our member manufacturers provide access to affordable medicines for America's patients and patients around the globe. It's a really great mission, and we're really proud to do it and to be with all of you today. As you know, health policy is a big arena, and we created Women in Health Policy, or WIP, to amplify the voices of female professionals in this space. WIP has grown to nearly 550 members over the past year, primarily because of members like you who spread the word and regularly engage in our in-person events in the before times and now online. So thank you for being here for our first ever virtual town hall. We're very pleased to partner with LinkedIn to share with you some of the best practices and how to elevate your voice through their platform. We all know, of course, that America's workforce has had to transition out of the office and into the home due to COVID-19, and everyone has experienced profound changes in the way they live, work, socialize, and of course, network. And I think women in particular juggle the unique challenges and demands of working from home full-time. Many, of course, of us are also parenting and truthfully homeschooling in between meetings. And we're trying to maximize our time and our efficiency, the clarity of our communications for the sake of our career success and our sanity. So there's a lot going on, and it's hard to carve out the time to focus on, rocking your LinkedIn profile. But we hear a lot about self-care, particularly in times of stress like this pandemic. And you have to think of this, I think, as self-care for your career, which is, I think, equally important. So this session will be moderated by my colleague, Kristen Murphy. She's the Director of Federal Affairs here at AAM, and it's going to be led by LinkedIn's Jake Perez and Rachel Ehrenberg. And just before we get started, I did want to flag a few housekeeping tips, just to let you know that this session is being recorded so that others can take advantage of the resource at a later date. All lines are muted at the moment, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So please use the chat function to message Kristen privately. She will facilitate the Q&A. And with that, please take it away, Rachel and Jake. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thank you all once again for the opportunity to connect this morning. So what we want to cover today, give you some context around LinkedIn. I'll happily walk you through profile tips and recommendations. We're going to cover some thought leadership thoughts as well, and then knowledge and insights. With that, Rach, you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rachel, and echoing Jake, thank you all again for having us and for joining today. Excited to be speaking with you all. Like Jake said, we're going to go through some really tactical tips on how you can improve your profile. And of course, it's a time where we really all want to focus on that. It's crazy, unprecedented times right now. So I think now is a really good time to be thinking through these topics. But before we get into that, I wanted to give you all a little bit of context on LinkedIn and our environment, but really how we've changed so much. Jake, if you want to advance to the next slide. So when you think of LinkedIn, you might still think of it's really a place for jobs. You go there if you want to get a job, if you're looking for a new job, and other than that, perhaps you might not even really need to log in. Now, that's definitely what we were in the past, but 16 years in, we have really grown in really new ways. So the first point to make here is just sheer growth. We have now over 175 million members on LinkedIn, and 2 members join every second. But more than just the sheer numbers, we've really seen an explosion of growth in other areas. So one thing that I really love on this slide is the 15 times engagement. There's 15 times more engagement with content than with job postings. So when we think about yes, we want to enhance our own profiles, but how else do we want to engage on LinkedIn so that we can be that kind of superstar, rock star person on LinkedIn who has a high engagement, has people reaching out to them, has great networking opportunities. So that's definitely something that is worth noting. Jake, if you want to go to the next slide. So with the growth that we're seeing, we're also really seeing how different the mindset on LinkedIn is. It's something that we've thought for a long time, but the growth really has just confirmed that even further. If you think about throughout the day when you visit various platforms, there's a time and a place for every platform, but LinkedIn tends to be a little bit different. So if we go to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to take a break from work, to be entertained, to catch up with friends, LinkedIn's a little bit different. We go there, the person that we present as ourselves, the persona is a little bit different. We look for news, we engage with others. There's learning opportunities, job opportunities, of course, and really a great place to get insights and also access thought leadership, which we'll dive into a little bit more later. And moving on again, next slide. And similarly to what I mentioned about the mindset our members have when they come to LinkedIn, we've really become a content destination for our members as opposed to, oh, Jake, you can hit next because I believe the numbers will pop up. There we go. We've really become that content destination more so than just a jobs board. You don't want your LinkedIn profile to just be a copy of your resume digitally. And we're going to get into the tips on how we make that distinction, but these are the reasons why people are on LinkedIn. So it's helpful to kind of think through these as we work to improve our profiles and increase engagement. And finally, if we move to the next slide, the final point I want to make about LinkedIn is the trust and safety we have on our platform. This is something that is really, really important to us. We have been in a study by Business Insider, the Digital Trust Report, from, I believe, since 2017, and we have come in first place overall across social platforms and first place in, I believe, every category. And they try to understand trust as a measure of, do I feel safe putting my information into this website? Is the content relevant to me? Do I feel like the news or information I'm being served is true? So a lot of different factors that have particularly become really top of mind for a lot of people over the last couple of years. LinkedIn is a place where people feel really secure about putting information out there and also the information that they're reading and absorbing. So when we think about how do we expand thought leadership, how do we become influencers, how do we engage with other influencers, it's a comforting feeling to know that LinkedIn is a safe place to do it in more ways than one. And Jake, I will hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel. So what are we really trying to do here? All of us are trying to put our best foot forward and tell our best story. And your profile is just that, it's your story. So this is an opportunity. We wanted to have everybody take a fresh look, especially given the obvious unfortunate events that all of us are living through now in a COVID-19 world. Goodness, we've seen over 44 million lose their jobs.
Jake, we can't hear you again, or at least I can't. And you froze briefly. I think you may need to, still can't hear you. Is anyone else having difficulty hearing Jake?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay.
With
there you go.
There we go. Are we back?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So members with a photo get 9 times more connection requests, 21 times more profile views, and 36 more messages. It is you wouldn't answer the door if you couldn't see who's there. And when it comes to opportunity, you want to have a professional look about you in terms of what you're presenting. We've seen the range and full spectrum of the hilarious sort of profile photos that people include. So you want to be thoughtful about that in terms of what you are presenting to the world. And try to stay away from patterns. There are, I'm sure, a range of lovely things one could wear, but you want to be really thoughtful. And there are headshot companies that help to do this. As you can see, LinkedIn offers filtering options as well to help customize your photo and make it as professional as possible. Surprisingly, adding your industry. Not enough people are doing this. Some are casting a wide net in terms of what they're listing, but you're getting 9 times more profile views when you've got the industry classification. And there are even subcategories within industry that are helpful to you in terms of how you are presented to those that are looking for you. So an active recruiter pool is going to be leveraging all the information in the profile, and having that connected is critical. The other really important piece is having a thoughtful and compelling summary. This is, again, your sort of elevator pitch. How are you packaging and presenting yourself? I've seen individual bullets, I've seen multiple paragraphs, and you want to be as concise and thoughtful about packaging your experience. And remembering again that what you're fundamentally doing here is telling a story. So how do we make your career experience to this point make sense and make it connect to that next aspirational role? For those of you that are just coming out of school and may have a limited career experience, you can use this area to talk about an aspirational direction and where you hope to go. Lots of ways to sort of craft things, but this is really the opportunity to pivot for those that are making a career change or looking at a different facet that can help you articulate that transition. And keeping that roughly to about 40 words is what we recommend, just in terms of sizing and spacing. And then next, you really want to get into detailing your work experience. How much detail is a question we often get, but having it up to date is vital. I mean, the overall message here is have a professional, polished presence that's up to date and that is oriented in the direction that you are seeking to take your career. And so, you know, with any pathway, for those that are looking to make a change or transition, or perhaps better define what that next role looks like, you want to highlight those particular parts of your job experience that match best with the attributes of the role that you're seeking. And so that detail and how you sort of package and present the experience that you've had is helpful in multiple ways in terms of how recruiters and other hiring managers are using the platform to look at your experience. Always great to have examples of your work. So this is, you know, Rachel talked about, you know, content and engagement. I think among the things we're trying to get people more comfortable doing and understanding how best to use LinkedIn as a platform to connect with one another is through content. So as much as you can share about your portfolio, your body of work, your perspectives on things, it gives people a more target-rich environment with which to connect with you, appreciate your work, and find pathways to connect and to work together collaboratively. So this is another great way to sort of position yourself, and those examples can help take you there. Video is another really efficient way and compelling way to connect. We've seen a lot of folks, particularly in COVID times, host a recorded session one-to-one with a colleague, a subject matter expert, whether you're doing, a product release or demo on something. They're just really compelling ways and easy, lightweight ways to engage with an audience, and they get incredibly high engagement compared to other forms of content. So if you've been thinking about video, take a look to connect with folks. And when it will load for me, come on. Here we go. And then adding volunteer experience. I think so many of us in the Washington metropolitan area in particular, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations here. So many of us are working with trade associations ourselves and get involved altruistically with our talents to support so many different organizations. It's a great way to build your experience. It's a great way to build your network. And one sort of underutilized facet of this is it's also a great way to connect with potential mentors. When you think about career pathways and where you are trying to go in the course of your own career arc, it's a great way to connect with leaders in different organizations as a volunteer to get practical experience on how it is that they're making a difference and ways that you can learn to navigate career pathways given their own experience. Skills are another huge area. So we've got a growing list by week. About every quarter, we're posting new member skills, and I think this is particularly important again in the COVID era. Unfortunately, we've seen so many people having to downsize their teams, and so more team members are wearing more hats. And that is challenging for sure, but in order to get credit for all the good work that people are doing, it's important to have those skills listed, because it's another facet of the ways recruiters are looking at you. And just over the arc of one's career, there's a variety of things that you're going to do, and having those skills listed, and then secondarily having them endorsed by current and former colleagues really helps to draw those out and feeds the algorithm more substantively than those that don't. So it's another important thing that a lot of folks often overlook. And following along that same vein, requesting a recommendation, just like you would in any social context, one-to-one. There's nothing like a personal recommendation from someone. There's a social accountability to that person when they're vouching for your requesting a recommendation from someone with whom you've worked can add a lot of credibility and validate those skills. So that's another thing not everybody takes advantage of, but really has an impact. And then again, looking at market-specific opportunities. So being sure to list your location, the basics here, of course, but where you went to school. Publications. Some folks are reluctant to list their various accomplishments, and I think it's really important to take a hard look at your profile. And this is an opportunity to toot your own horn and celebrate the things that you've done. I know a lot of folks have varied career experience, and it might seem odd to include some things. Of course, think thoughtfully about what it is that you're putting on your profile, but as long as it is in the same track of where it is that you're trying to go aspirationally, it's certainly appropriate to do that. Location, even with remote employment increasing widely given COVID, it's still helpful to have context around what geographic market you're in, and the different industries that are catered to there, and the opportunities that are fed by location. So it's important to include that. And Rach, do you want to take us through thought leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jake. So as we heard Jake talk about, we went through some really tactical ways to not only improve your profile, but also really start to tell the story that you want to tell as a professional. And really taking it to the next level, let's talk about building thought leadership. So in terms of building thought leadership on LinkedIn, there are really two buckets that it falls into: updates and publishing. And I'll go into both of them in a little bit more detail to not only show you how to tactically do it, but also best practices when you're doing those things. And if we go to the next slide, we'll start talking about updates. So sharing a status update, you can think of that as when you log into LinkedIn, whether you're on your phone on the app or on your desktop, you'll be able to click right at the top and a box will come up, and it's just kind of posting that quick update, whatever that may be. And these are the types of posts that when you're scrolling through LinkedIn, you see them in the feed, trying to get engagement, and it can really spark conversations. So this is kind of the fast track to building thought leadership, because it's going to be a lighter lift in terms of time and effort than what we'll talk about with publishing. But in terms of best practices for sharing updates, being authentic is really important. People really appreciate authenticity on LinkedIn. Talk about what you know. You are an expert in your field and what you do within that field, and sharing that information that you have and others don't have is what people want to see, and what they want to know. Posting frequently, kind of establishing a regular cadence of sharing is really effective, because you will be popping up in the algorithm more and more, and it also just gives you more opportunities to engage with people. Also, starting a conversation, similar to what I was saying with being authentic. This is your voice that people want to hear. You have something unique to say, and framing our updates in a way that encourages that conversation bodes really well for engagement on LinkedIn. People are, I'm sure as you've all seen on LinkedIn, people are really interested in having that conversation, hopefully all politely, in the professional space about these topics. Including rich media, similar to Jake mentioned on your actual profile. Anything that has a photo or a video is going to perform better than a post that is just text. And then creating an opportunity for reciprocity, similar to creating the opportunity for a conversation. Think about the things that you can say that will benefit your professional community. Yes, be authentic, and yes, share things that only you know, but also think about not making everything self-serving, and expanding a little bit beyond that to, yes, I know these things, but how can we all kind of build this community together? And if we go to the next slide, so that's sharing updates. And now I'll talk a little bit about publishing on LinkedIn. So this is a little bit different. Like I said, it's going to require a heavier lift in terms of time and effort, but it's going to achieve some different goals in different ways that sharing updates does. So a few things to note about publishing are that it becomes a permanent part of your profile if you want it to be. So if you publish an article on LinkedIn on healthcare policy, and someone searches your name and go visits your profile, they're going to see that there. So it's a great way to build out your profile as well. So it will show up in the feed, and then it will also continuously show up on your profile. So it's a great way to continuously establish your voice in the space. It gets shared with your network, like I said, and of course reaches the largest group of professionals assembled online in the world. If we go to the next slide. Similarly to the sharing updates, you can just start it on the home page, and it will take you through the steps of publishing. So pretty simple there. And then in terms of best practices, in some ways are similar to the sharing updates, but in some ways a little bit different as well. Creating a headline that captures attention. This is important. We're all scrolling through all different types of platforms all day, every day. What can you say that will attract the type of people that you want to read it, that will stand out to them in their day? Include a photo. Again, rich media is always going to enhance engagement. being authentic, using your own voice, talk about what you know, think about your audience, who are they and what might they want to hear from you? What can you offer to them that maybe someone else isn't offering to them? And then a question that we get a lot is article length. So obviously updates are going to be, you know, think of it almost like a tweet, but a little bit longer, the stuff that you typically see in the feed. Publishing, you have a lot more flexibility to really talk about a topic that you're passionate about and that you know about. And there's often not great opportunities for long form posts on different platforms. So it is a great place to have a long form post, but that being said, the sweet spot for article length is about 600 to 1,000 words. So we don't want it to be too long that people give up on reading it. And finally, you'll be able to track your progress when you publish. So this is a really interesting way to understand who's viewing your article. If you write something for a very specific audience, you'll be able to see, okay, am I actually reaching that audience? Who's engaging with it? Who's seeing it? And then you can also tailor your future content to best resonate with your professional community. And Jake, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Rachel. So next we want to cover an understanding of more pathways really here, knowledge and insights. So gaining knowledge, this is really about following companies, key companies in your industry, whether they be company prospects, those that you're looking to, you know, in the thought leadership vein that Rachel was just talking about, there are a lot of companies that are publishing a ton of compelling content. The best way to know where you are set is by following them and seeing what other activity they have that aligns with where you're going, keeps pace with them, and helps to drive engagement in similar ways. Next is following influencers. I'd be interested to see if you guys can comment for us in the chat what influencers you guys are following. I know Christine is a popular influencer, obviously in this category. Curious to know of others that you guys follow, and obviously in broad strokes, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And others that are helping to drive that sort of national conversation. But within select industries and regions even, like DC, we see pockets of specific influence, and that's another critical facet as you look at your network and having the pulse of the conversation. You can also leverage a variety of advanced filters that help you identify, again, geographically, by industry or by company, again, getting a good sense of what the conversation is and what's most appropriate for your particular area. And then the ability to customize your feed. A lot of folks are unaware of some of the different facets that exist, but as a member on LinkedIn, you have full control of your feed. And so you have an opportunity through those 3 magic dots to help, you know, with different filtering preferences and whether you want to follow, unfollow companies or influencers. You can hide posts that are not relevant to you. All of that helps to feed the algorithm of the content that you are sent in your feed. So this all helps to improve your experience on the platform. So I'd encourage you guys to go through your settings, clean up your profile, and engage in the content that's most interesting and compelling to you, which will then feed more of that. I know we wanted to give some time for questions. It's always my favorite part of these sessions. We tried to cover a broad swath here of things that are helpful, but excited to hear your questions. I know we've got the team helping to curate thus far.
Thanks. We actually have a couple of questions already in the queue. So the first one being from Erica says, with the LinkedIn algorithm, does it help to boost your profile if you comment on other people's posts?
That's a great question. It does. Every action on the platform is another form of sort of an engagement score, if you will. So everything that you're doing helps your individual profile performance.
And to follow up on that question, so many of us are part of these groups, such as Women in Health Policy. So the question is, when you engage in those groups, does that also help boost your profile?
It does. I mean, I think you're adding more to a target-rich environment in terms of the content that you're putting out, the perspectives that you have on things. I think in broad strokes, you know, what the Rock Your Profile is intended to do is to have people take a hard look at themselves, put the best professional foot forward, and think carefully about what it is that they're trying to do. And you know, this is this is everyone's sort of life journey, is coming into your own and finding your own voice. And I think the thought leadership piece that Rachel thoughtfully walked us through is so important. It is intimidating. It can be scary to sort of put out there your thoughts on things, but particularly now, we have so many, you know, look, I spent a decade in clinical trial patient recruitment. I've been around the healthcare space and health policy for the last 20 years. And, you know, we are living in exciting, if terrifying times. And so many customers, so many people are looking for answers. And it's those leaders where we see, I mean, if you look at the latest list of LinkedIn influencers, they're people who are staking their opinion publicly about where we are and where we're headed, and that we're in this together, and that there are ways to find common ground and common purpose through what we're doing. And I think when you are out there talking about a policy position, recommendations and guidance, you know, whether you're talking grassroots advocacy, membership, you know, people for thought leadership and for opportunity and in every form. And I think that the ways in which you can authentically present yourself, talk about your experience, talk about that opportunity, that helps to continue to fuel and nurture the community. And that's why WiHP is so important. I am proud of what you guys have been able to do, and in a short year, a crazy year, assemble a really important group of professionals in the DC area that are focused in this area at no more critical a time than now. So thank you for what you're doing, and you know, the Rock Your Profile, this is an opportunity for us to connect with you all, share some best practice here, but really continue to nurture your community and reflect back the good that you're putting into it.
Awesome. Speaking of opportunities, another question has come through. When I see jobs posted on LinkedIn, I often get notification as to how my skills match with the posting. If I apply to a job via LinkedIn, will the employer also see that info on how well my skills match?
It's a great question. I think the trouble of sort of taking you through the templated deck is it doesn't shine a key light. But what I was trying to say, like you would with your resume, frankly, when you're tailoring for a specific opportunity, you do want to make sure that you're peppering in the right experience that they're looking for in that particular role. The algorithm and how both hiring managers and recruiters are leveraging the platform, they have essentially keywords, metadata that they're pulling from your profile. If those are absent, you're probably not going to get as high a score on the match rate against that particular role. So it is important to take a thoughtful look at if that's really the right opportunity, whether it's that particular company, but more so that role is the right fit, then you want to make sure that your experience is reflecting that. And if you don't have that particular experience, that's where maybe a volunteer opportunity, other pathways can help enhance that professional experience that you have that make you a stronger candidate for that particular role.
On that same front, are there any keywords that you would recommend including in our profiles as we start to kind of rock our profiles more?
It's a great question. I think it's specific, almost role specific. So I'd be reluctant to say these are the 6 things that are awesome, because everybody would have those 6 things and it's immediately worthless. I am a huge advocate for authenticity. So what are the things that, it's kind of hard to say for a social platform that's bringing 700 million people together, but what makes you special? And what's going to have you stand out against the crowd? And I think everyone has unique ways of celebrating themselves and their career experience. And I think the ways that you can do that are honest about yourself. Here are my strengths. These are the things I'm looking to do in this next role, or the experience that I bring to bear. I think more than anything, people are looking for passion and authenticity. And I think what's awesome about this space is you wouldn't be here if you didn't care. And so the passion is clear. It's that professional experience and perspective that you bring. And what's awesome about WiHP is you are supporting one another in your career and professional growth.
Thanks. I think that's really helpful. We've got a number of, if you look at the participant list on this call, we've got a very diverse group of women who are, just starting out in their careers. They've also got a lot of experience, but there's also a lot of diversity in the types of trade associations that are represented on this call. And a few of them are actually member driven. And, that faces a number of unique challenges. For example, Catherine mentions, if I work for a membership-driven organization and all of the published writing I do is under a member's byline, what are some of the other things that I can share on LinkedIn? And also, how do you leverage that skill set? Because that's a particularly unique skill set as well.
So if I understood the question correctly, you're not getting attribution in the way that you deserve, given your professional role, and yet you want to make clear that you have, you want to be able to communicate that perspective. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I've worked with a variety of freelance writers in my past life, and so there's the day job and the shingle they hang on the side for be it science writing, any realm in the professional communication space. I think that they're to celebrate the variety of work that you've done, and if you almost look at it as an abstract, how can I talk about my experience in a brief summary that can encapsulate what I just authored? And you can give, it's sort of a side swipe at credit for what you've done. I recently authored a piece with colleagues in a membership or trade association journal on topic X. Here were my key takeaways. So there's sort of ways to build in a summary, if you will, that still gives a nod in that direction without sort of stealing thunder from your parent organization. And that is a real challenge. I've gotten versions of this question before. And I think the other thing that just works really well on LinkedIn is that summary piece anyway. I think the average person, well, it's great and you have the opportunity to publish and should for long form, short form is welcome every day. And so when you can say in a more direct manner, let's go in the other direction, hey, my colleagues and I just published this for this group. So you're giving a nod to the organization of which you're a part of. You're giving a nod to your colleagues, co-authors, etc. But you can now encapsulate what the key takeaways were. If you've just got 5 minutes, if you've got 90 seconds, here's the headline. Here were the key 3 things that were surprising to me when I researched this area. It's just a different way to sort of repackage and present content. And I think among things we talk about, we never have enough time for these things. Think about sort of content strategy. What's the story you want to tell? And the big thing I recommend to clients all the time, Rachel and I are talking about an editorial calendar. So what are the things that matter in your world and the people that you're trying to influence? When do those things happen? And how are you programming or counter-programming for those things? So if there's an annual conference that's coming up, and this is awesome. This is some of the best member content we have is people's perspective from attending a conference. Obviously, most of those are now virtual, but the takeaways and lessons that you learned, the ahas, are what people care about. And not everybody can stop to do every webinar, every conference that's out there, but you become a more respected voice because of your opinion. So share that opinion.
And on that front, if you on the events front, can you speak to some of the best ways to leverage the platform, or some of the best practices if you are either speaking or attending an event, either virtually or in person?
I'd love to see people pay it forward. So some of the best stuff that I enjoy are, respected speakers who come in sharing, again, the sort of surprises. What did they enjoy from a recent book, conference, conversation? And the LinkedIn exists to share knowledge and create opportunity. So what are ways that you can do that? And I think that's it. They can be large and small. They can be, verbose or adorable. You do what works for you and what's authentically representing you and your brand, but be thoughtful about your brand. And, it's all about sharing. So I think, if you've engaged with some good content, share it. If you comment on it, like stuff, the more you're doing, the more opportunity you're creating for yourself and for those that can then connect with you. Rach, I'm sorry, I'm saying everything. Please jump in.
No worries. Just to add on to the events, I think given how everything has gone virtual, LinkedIn has been a really important place for a lot of organizations to host their events and make sure that they're still able to get the word out there to their members or their customers or whoever that may be. It's a great place to network if you're the person attending the event, and for all of you who may work on events for your organizations, utilizing LinkedIn events or LinkedIn Live is definitely something that you all should explore. And that's definitely something you could reach out to me and Jake about afterwards if you're interested in talking about that.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, we are here to support our mission, which is to help create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And we do that by engaging. So by all means, if any of you have questions, if there are ways we can help you in your organization with membership, advocacy, brand, you name it. Another free tool, speaking of free tools that can help drive engagement, are polls. LinkedIn recently launched polls. And so if you're thinking, what, Christine, this might be a good one for you, in fact, because I think of leaders wanting to cater to their audience. And so often think of what's right to go. And while you are, of course, thoughtful about your own sort of editorial calendar and where you go with your conversation over the arc of a year, it's often in these challenging times that you want to know, what do they need to hear? What do they want to hear? And so polls can be a great way to inform your own content strategy about how to serve your members, how to speak to important constituent audiences, and that can help define sort of where you go with the next chapters of conversation.
Okay, so I think that's actually it for the questions. We did have one more from Rita asking if there'd be a recording available afterwards. And the plan is to send out a recording of this afterwards. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Christine for some closing remarks, and then I think we're good.
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you so much, Jake and Rachel. We really do appreciate this. I found it to be chock full of really practical and good advice that I definitely plan to implement. I encourage you all to do the same. We must take the time to tend to our careers, and I do think it's very challenging working remotely. We do lose a little bit. I mean, there are some pluses. I know I'm in shorts from the waist down, but but I do think that, you know, please do carve out the time to implement some of these great tips. And I hope to see all of you more on LinkedIn, and let's support each other. You know, we can comment on each other's posts, we can like things, we can excuse me, continue and engage in conversations with each other. So I think paying it forward is fantastic advice from Jake, and thank you all for making this time. Consider it, you know, a big win, and please continue on, and we'll see you all on the LinkedIn platform in the WIP space. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.